Okay, I would love to welcome everyone to this course once again. Now we'll be starting off with HTML, which is the first language you need to know in your web development process. So now HTML is basically what is known as is called a hypertext markup language. That is just the short form. Now, probably if you don't really know what HTML is or you are not yet familiar with it, don't worry. As time goes on, you become familiar with it. So the first step we'll do now, we'll do in our project is just let's open up a folder. So I could just start up and create a new folder. Now this folder automatically becomes my site. So I could just call it, let's say I want to call it fire site. Now what this folder does is that every document will work on in this folder automatically is your site. So I select the folder, and in case you are new to the course, I made a video on this Dreamweaver. Now in this our site so you see that this on this Visual Studio Code rather, so it is a not really Dreamweaver, but we may come use Dreamweaver at some point in this course. Now we'll start up a new file, a new HTML file, and we'll select the language to the HTML. So I could just type in HTML. So if you're using a mobile phone to join us in your mobile phone, also you could also see where you could start up a new file. Now once I start up this file, so automatically this already an HTML file. And what you actually need to know is that at the end of this course, you should be able to know virtually everything about HTML. As I told us earlier, that HTML is more of the structure of a web page. What the website, the first language the website understands or a web browser understands is HTML. What is a browser? A browser is more of what interprets your code for you. So you have Samsung browser on your phone, you have Google Chrome, you have Microsoft Edge. So I'll be using Microsoft Edge. You also have many other types of browsers, so as much as you can. And let's just get right into HTML. And the first thing you do in HTML is to declare the doc type. Now let me start by declaring the doc type. So now the doc type, okay, let me just give us an example of a HTML code and run the code so we could also see what it means. So maybe after running the code, I will explain to us what every single code means. Okay, so that's my head tag. Don't worry about the code. If you're just joining us, don't worry. Probably if you had no knowledge about web design before, or even website at all, and you just joined the video, you could check out the previous videos. We spoke some things, we explained what a website is. But as for what I'm writing now, don't worry, I will explain every single one of them, one after the other, once I'm done now. Okay, now this is all. Now in case of whenever you write any code at all in your text editor, the first thing you have to do is to save that code. So I'll just Ctrl S to save this code, or if you're Mac, you could also write Command S. Now you see that is in our sites, our local site. Now this is a local site in your system, so if you want to put your site online this same way it is here, you'll carry everything and put online. So now basically in web design, you usually name your first page index. So if I give you my code now, you never wrote the code once, and you want to go to the first page, how will you know the first page? The first thing you should do is to check out the index page. Now the index page is more of the home page. This could also be called a landing page, depending more of where the moment the viewer enters your domain, comes into your site, the first thing he sees is the index. So I could just call it index, and remember to save every of your file with .html. So if you also join us with a mobile phone, so there are also other tags also, and you could use .html, but this is the best. It's advised to use .html because that's more of the standard. Now how to explain what every single thing I just wrote now means. So before that, let me run this code in a web browser and show us how it runs. Okay, now let me open up the place I stored the file. Okay, this is, so I come to my file site, and this was our index.html. I hope it to load. Okay, now this is our code. So if you could write this, if you could write this automatically, you're already a web developer. So I could also, you see that this is basically what we've written. This is our website, our first web page. So if you click on the index.html, you will still see that it's still the same thing that it shows you. So you see that this basically you're already a web developer, but from the basic from now. Okay, now I can begin now by explaining what I just did now. So what I just did is to explain to us what it means. Now what we use to open that file is called a browser. Now a browser interprets or understands the code you wrote. If we wrote more, the browser will also have understood it. So now, what this means is that now this is the basic structure of any HTML code or any website you are seeing. Now, what I mean is that every single thing you see here, the way it is structured, the first thing you do is to declare your doc type, to declare the type of file you're using, which is HTML. Now, this doc type usually comes before, is not, and we are aware also the declaration of this doc type is not case sensitive. What I mean is that if I also write, if I change this to small letters throughout now, and I write doc type HTML, and I save the file, and I come to my browser, and I rerun it, it still doesn't change it. You understand? So it's still the same. So it's not really case sensitive, but as much as you can. But it's advisable also to use this capital recap, because that is actually the declaration for the HTML5. Now, what Doctype HTML does is to declare the file, to declare more of that you are using, writing it with HTML. As I told us earlier, that this is you if you have a Mac, you could also write this code. Now we're using Visual Studio to write this code. You could write it also on anywhere you also want to write it. Now, and also what the HTML tag is that it helps you to, this HTML tag is more of this first place to start up your documents. So the documents, every HTML document, so every code, every web page starts up with a HTML document. Now the visible part of this system now is the body. Okay, let's say I remember I wrote welcome to this course here. Okay, let's say I wrote I just wrote something. Okay, let me duplicate this same thing I wrote here now in the heading tag. So if I duplicate this and press this in this heading tag, it will also show, because probably the browser doesn't understand this. But don't be deceived that if I put this, what I wrote here now, I paste it here, if I put it here now, it will still show in that same browser the same way it's showing here now. But the truth is that don't be deceived, because it's not actually the standard in running your sites. So everything that is called a document is placed in your is placed in the body tag. So the body is more of the is more of where everything you want people to see is placed. Now, what are headings? Now, headings are more of like you know what headings are in terms of topics, subhead, more like the topic sentence, or like the epicenter of what you want to do. So now, not really topic sentence, but more like the title of what you want to do. Yeah. Now, there are different headings defined in HTML. Remember I told you that a website, HTML more of tells the website what everything is. It tells the website what everything is, while CSS styles the website and JavaScript makes it interactive. Now we're going to there are different types of headings in HTML. So I will just duplicate this to show us the different types of headings. Okay, so I've just duplicated all of them. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now if I change every single to here, you could hold here and also hold. If you hold your Alt key, click on the second place also, it could make 2 edits once. That's if you're using Visual Studio Code. But if you are using a mobile phone, you could just do the edits by yourself also. So I'll change all the tags. So this H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and even H6 also. So let me duplicate it one more time. is h6, and I'll save it. So then after doing this, make sure to always save your file while working with HTML. So if I save this file, let me come back to our browser. Okay, I'll reload this. Okay, now you see this is the difference between in this course. Now you see that welcome to this course, welcome to this course, welcome to this course, welcome to this course, welcome to this course. Now all of them are headers, but it depends on what. Now the browser automatically has a default style sheet or default way of styling your documents. So you could see that this is bold, this is bigger. So probably you could use this for your subheadings in your code, you could use this for the main heading, you could use this for emphasis. So as much as you can, though there are also rooms to style your HTML headings the same way you want. Now there's also what we call HTML paragraphs. Now paragraphs are defined with are defined using the p tags. So we'll add a paragraph now. Okay, I'll come to the next line to start up my paragraph. So this is my paragraph. So it's used with a p tag. Now I didn't highlight it also. Every HTML tag has a break. So this is the first one is usually the very first HTML tag, while the second one is more of the closing. Now HTML tags, the first one, as you could see the difference by now, that the first one does not have any backward slash before it, while the second one has. So now what you do in the p tag is more of a paragraph. So let's say I want to start up a code. I could just write down lorem ipsum is what is used to generate codes basically in web development. Maybe you may not really have time to start writing code, start writing how you feel you want to do it, start writing what you want to do. Just if you simply type lorem ipsum, press enter. So in case you're using a mobile phone, you will see you could also see lorem ipsum generators online also, where you could just copy codes. So I could keep writing lorem ipsum as much as you can. So that's basically what you need to do for now. So now what we'll do now is let's check it out on our browser. So I save this document, I'll come back to my browser and reload it. Now you see this is a paragraph. So this is a paragraph in our first website. So how to add a paragraph is using the p tag. Now that's it. So that's the first structure of the site. Now another thing we also need to learn about is the links. Now HTML links are more of what defines you to a web page, or more of what defines you to where you want to go. So now a link's destination is specified using the href tag, or href attribute rather. Now attributes are used to provide additional information about a HTML document. Now let me give us an example. Let's say if I click this link, it will link me to somewhere. Let's say it can link me to a new document. Okay, I could create up. Now remember I told us earlier that in creating documents, you just open up. Okay, in creating documents, you just open up your. Let me right click here and say I want to open up a new file, and that my new file now, and I could just call it. Let me start it up from here. Okay, I could just call my file. Let's say about. So this would be the about page .html. Okay, now this is my about page. So I could start by coding my about page here. So the same way, so now you could code thousands and thousands of pages in your web development. So let's say I just want to reference. If I click on, okay, let me just add an about page here. Let's just say click here to know more. Okay, so if you click here to know more, and okay, so it's saved on our site. Let's check it out on our site. Okay, this is click here to know more. So let's say I want to click. If I click on any of these tags now, it will link me to the about page. So what you simply do is, that's where HTML links comes into now. So what you simply do is, a link is created using the a tag. So let me give us an example. So the moment you start up your tag, so automatically it closes it for me. It thinks I'll be using. He expected me to write my code in between here, so I could just copy everything here, click here to know more, Ctrl+, I'll paste it in between. this tag. Let me just add my click. So now let's save this document and check it out on our site. Okay, now before, let's just check it out on our site first before I'll show us how to reference it. So if you reload this browser and you click on it, you still see that it's still not functioning. That's because we have not really referenced any file to it. So let me return back and reference a file. So how to reference a file is, or reference it on another website, is simply adding the href, so href. Now what, don't worry about some of these. Maybe if in case you are not familiar with some of these terms, don't worry, you just go ahead in your coding and your web development, you become used to them. So what href is, I could reference any website to this href attributes. So now these ones inside the tag is called, they are called attributes. So if you want to reference it before maybe your home page, you could just add the hash bar. If you don't have any site, probably we have not yet opened this HTML about page first, and I just want to reference maybe the default page. So if I save this document now, if I save this document and I come up here and reload this tag, you will see it. So if I click here, because we have not really added any place, we just let it to be default. Now let's say, okay, let's say I want to add the about page.html. So I want to reference about page.html. So I'll save this. Make sure you always press Ctrl S before coming up to your browser, and if I click on it, now you see that it referenced me to our about page. So it was in our index page and it referenced me to our about page. And because there is nothing on our about page yet, that is why it seems is the way it seems nothing is showing for now. Now that is it about having links. So you could link this to any website. You could link it to www. your domain name or anything at all you want, or even an IP address. But don't worry, if you just be getting familiar with these terms, we'll explain everything later. Now let's come to HTML images. Now HTML images are defined using the img tag. Now the img tag, this is the img tag. So HTML images are defined using this tag. Now what the tag does is that the source file, this tag has things like src, alt, alt, and also the width and the height. So more of what the source file does is simply to, okay, let me write it out in case you, so I'll call it an attribute. So this is my source file now. So you could, now this is even, now it's mandatory for, if you look at the document side, this is an image URL, so it's mandatory for every site. So what it basically does is just to make sure that you can reference what you want. Now let's say I want to reference where my document is stored. Now I'll show us quickly how we could add documents to a project. Remember that these are projects, so I'll just create up a new folder. Remember to make sure your document, and I could call it images in my site, images. Now every image I add would be to this place, so I could just add up an image now. Okay, I could even right click on this. I right click, let's say I want to reveal it in File Explorer, or okay, now this is my document. So what I'll basically do is, this is my image, so I just reveal the file. So now this is my image folder, so I could basically copy any image in my system. Let's say I want to use this, I'll copy it, Ctrl C, and you could come back to your image folder and paste it right there. So if it's pasted there, you'll see the image appear here. Now that's it. So automatically now, once you are done with it, you see that it has appeared in your file. So you see that it has appeared in your file, and I'm back here, but it's still not showing. Okay, now it has opened up, but in case it's not showing, you could click on this. This is it refreshes more of the, it refreshes the Explorer in terms of making, in case you make any change in your document or in your site and it has not reflected here, you could just reflect it here. Now let's say I want to add a source. I could even rename this image also. Okay, let me just rename it to img1, img1, so img1. Now let's come back to our index page. So the source will be images. Now to link, okay, let me just call it images slash img1. See down, that's how Visual Studio Code helps you. You may not really need to write it much. Now what I did now, I didn't just write images.img1, because I didn't just write img1 rather, because I could have another folder, maybe tons of folders in this place. Maybe I could call this one images in my slideshow, images in my this, images. So now if I just write img1, maybe there will be img1 in different places also, but it just needs me, to reference it. Now what we call the root of this document is called the index page, more of the very first page. I can have more about folder, this about page, inside this document now. So if I move it there now, let's say I move it there, automatically now you will see. Let me reload this tab. Let me save it now, and I'll come to our web browser. Okay, I reload this and I click here to know more. You see that there's now the file has not have been moved or deleted. So every file you just write, so any file you just write its name basically, without maybe I just wrote the name of any file at maybe as an example, as I just wrote about page HTML. That is because it's in the same place with this folder. They are all in the same folder. Let me open up our file explorer so we could see it, and that is because the both of them, they are together. But if they are inside the folder, you must write the name of that folder slash then where it is. So just like what we did here now, images slash where our image is. And if we look up this in our web browser, I think we saw it the last time we you could see our image. We just added an image successfully. So every image you see on in any site at all, both in fact from Facebook site to everywhere, was added using this tag. Now that is what img or image does, and you could also reference this image tag to any other place again, but never to mind. We'll talk about it more. So now we'll go ahead with defining what, and let's say other attributes it can also have, other attributes it could also have. Okay, now I could say I want to add, let's say, source. Let's say I want to add alt, and alternate is just. But there are many more other things I can add there. But if you will still discuss some of these tags in detail more. So let's say I just want to add alt is the image. The image is here. So now this is an alternate tag in case we don't have, in case this image is missing or we delete it here by mistake, the alternative alternative text will show. And okay, don't worry if you don't really understand, if you're not familiar with some of these terms rather, because as we go you understand it. Now I told us earlier that how HTML does it. You start up with HTML tags, and every HTML tag has an open and a closing while. So now basically every HTML just it opens up and it's closed up. Now there's what we call empty tags in HTML. Now what an empty tag does is that its empty tags do not have end tags. The same way we have this open tag and this is the closing. And if I write let me write an empty tag here. Okay, some people may think that if I want to move, remember that in our documents here everything is on one line, right? So from here to here is on one line. Okay, let's say I want to move here now, like this X. I want to move it to the next line. If you click enter, okay, this is where our file is. I click enter and it's moved there. Okay, let me even give 10 spaces safe. So if I save this document now and I reload this tab, funny enough, it doesn't make any difference. Why? That's because HTML does not understand enter key as you're moving to the next line. So what HTML understands is there is a tag called the break tag. Now let me give you an example of a break tag. Now I write this BR and I close it. So automatically now they are still on the same line, right? But I'll save this document, I'll come back to our file, reload it, and it automatically moves to the next line. So now this is what HTML understands, that you move to the next line using the break tag. So now what I talked about, we'll still talk about it more later, but what I just want us to be aware is that this break tag is called an empty element, so it does not really have a closing. But you could also use this also. You could add a backslash after it to close it also. But basically, if I save the document and I reload it, it will still not have any special effects in it. So it's still basically the same. But even if you remove this, even if you remove the BR, it's still okay. So and that's basically how you could move documents to the next line in HTML. Now HTML can also be nested in terms of that HTML can contain other HTML tag. Like I can say now that I want to move everything here, I want to copy it and I paste it here, and even if I save it and I reload it, it's automatically all now the document. These files are these tags are inside these ones, so but yet it still appears clearly. So it can be nested. You could have tags inside themselves, you could have links inside different tags also. Like we just have a link, we would have another paragraph inside this paragraph tag. So that doesn't mean that it's just one part, or it could just one tag you could have in the root of your element throughout. Now while coding, make sure you don't forget to add your end tag, because probably most times you could have errors. You may think you are wrong, but maybe some people can just forget to put this tag, or some people can forget to add the slash before closing at the end tag. Now those errors are, you should make sure you don't make them. So make sure you close every single tag you use in your project. Now HTML also is not case sensitive, as I told us earlier. Using with the Doctype example, you could also have head big or small. They are not usually sensitive, but it's best if you could use the small letters also to write it. And there's what we call attributes. Attributes are HTML tags that provide additional information. Like I give us an example of use of the source attribute. So the source attribute is more of what you could use to okay, now this is also an attribute. This href is more of what you could use to reference. So attributes provides additional information about a page. And let's say this our image now we just added now. Remember, it's filling up our screen, and the screen is not even enough for the image. Now we could just add let's say we could add a width and a height to it. Now the width and the height are sources also. I could just call it, okay, let me quickly check the folder. Let me just know the size of this folder, the size of this page. Okay, this is one. Okay, it's too much. I was looking at the correct size, but let's just say I want to use 500 by, and then this is the width, and then the height will be, because I want to make it 250. So if I save this document, you will see the difference in this course. It's clicking now. You see right from how big it has been compressed to become very small. Now that is basically how you could. So you see that automatically this alt, width, height, and source are attributes. Now the attribute, as I told us, alt is more of, okay, now let me try to delete this image out of this folder, or let me just change the location of the image. Let me move it out of the folder. I remember we referenced this using images. So now let's save our documents, and let's know if the browser still recognizes that we moved this. And you see what the browser wrote for us, the image. So in other words, it uses the alt image as the substitute for that image. And this, don't forget to add this alt attribute, because it's important for those. Maybe we have some blind people that could also be using the net and they can't see the image. Well, the browser interprets the alternate text as the image to them. So it's very important while coding. So, and that is as important as what you just need. Now there's also what we call the style attribute. The style attribute is, let's quickly return our image back before we proceed. Okay. Now the style attributes is used to style an element, more of to give it color, to give it font, to give it size, to make it just to style it up, okay, let's say I want to style this H2 and I want to add color to it. I could just say, remember that this is an attribute style, and let's say I want to add color, and okay, what's your favorite color? You just add your favorite color there. Let me just say red. Okay, red. I save my document. Red represents blood. Now this is now you see that this is automatically what our style attribute does. So style attribute is more of, it styles your page, it gives you, but don't worry, you'll learn more about styling in our CSS tutorial. So now what the language also does, what the language of the document does is that shows what the language is. Now HTML languages are things used to more of to describe. Let me give us an example. Now after writing this basic structure of your website, now what you do is in the HTML, which is the root of this of the code, you declare your language. So let's say I right now, and this is the attribute, and the attribute used to declare this is US. Okay, now English, so I'm using English and US. So for Spanish, the other attribute for Spanish, for people using French, like French is FR. For Spain, and for there are many more languages you could add, but basically yes, you are using English, and now this is US English you are using. So like I knew when I was learning coding earlier, I added a okay, let me just I added you to this my color, and I saved the document. For it took a while before I could debug it. I had to meet my I had to meet my coordinator to help me clarify it. So you see that what it automatically does is that since you're using the US code, you cannot change it. You just have to stick by their standard. Now that's what HTML attributes does. Now there's also what we call the title attribute. The title attribute is more of is added to a paragraph element, or it could be added to anywhere. More of it gives it a tooltip, or it gives you what you can use to know. Let's say, remember I just hovered. Let me hover around this paragraph now. I see nothing is happening, but let's say I hover around it. I add this title now, and I say title. This is my first paragraph in web development. So I want to control save the document, and I come to my home and I reload it, and my hovering around it automatically, you see now it gives me this is my first paragraph in web development. So this is how. Now have you ever maybe hovered over a document and it will be showing you this is what you need to do, click more to know this. So this is how it's added. So you add the title using the title code. Now I told you earlier, let's make sure we use small cases. It's very important, because probably if you are using big cases, the title, it doesn't, you can also write it with uppercase, but if you are using small case, like that's the best. Now there's what we call W3C. W3C is it's called the World Wide Web Consortium. Now what it does is there are standards, that they are international or web standards. They check how your web page is done, whether your website is up to standard, if you used everything correctly according as it was released. So probably if you're using this high, maybe I'll write HTML capital letter, I'll now write other small, W3C will not verify it, but that doesn't mean you can host your site, you can do everything good, but just to work with industry and to make sure you're up to date to the current thing, make sure you use small letters throughout. Now there's also what we call the quote attribute values, and quote attribute values are terms of, even if I write this thing and what I just wrote now, let's say I referenced this page now, and I referenced it without, I didn't use, and I saved my documents, and let me come back and reload it. You'll see that basically I could still click and move to somewhere else without my apostrophes. So what it does is that make sure you use this tags also basically while you are coding, because it kind of helps you to understand what you are doing, and is more of, it guides you, or it fulfills the W3 standard. So let me just say I want to add my page in between. So don't make the mistake of just writing your tag, because as you are developing complex sites, you'll be surprised that you will need to, if you started coding wrongly, you'll be surprised that you'll be coding there and most bugs will come up there. So just make sure you are careful about that also. Now you may be asking also, can I use a single quote or a double quote, while must I use these double quotes? Now it's advisable also to use a double quote maybe for first, but what if I want to add a single quote? I could also add a single quote. It's not compulsory to use a single quote. Even if I remove this and I use a single quote, it's still the same. But let's say I want to add, this is my first web development, okay, my first paragraph. Let's say I want to add a single quote to this document. Now if I add it, it basically will not detect it as an error. So I save this file and I reload it. Okay, let me come back to our index page. I read it. If you hover around, you will see that we added a single quote inside a double quote. So the double quote will not be displayed, but the single quote will be displayed. So you could as well add a single quote inside a double quote or a double quote inside a single quote. Now that's basically what you need to know for some of these tags for now. So we'll move to the next thing, which is actually we're talking about the headings. Now as I've told us earlier, that those headings are very important. Now I just want us to style some of these headings to also know how they could also work. Now you could change the size of these headings. Let's say I want to change, remember how big this is. Let's say I want to change this to, I could just use my style. I could add an attribute called style, and let's say fonts. My font size would be I could just call 15 pixels. 15 pixels. And I save my document and I come back to and I reload my tab, and you see how small my H1 tag has become. So it's almost the same with my H4 tag. So now that is how you could change the font size. There are other styling rules also, and there's also what we call, there is HTML horizontal rules. And horizontal rules tag defines more like a break in a page, or how we want a page to look. Let's say the break, let's say I'm done with this now and I want to add a break. I could just start by writing my HR and I close it up. So remember, it's an empty tag, it doesn't have closing also. So I save this document, I come back to my page and I reload the page, and you see automatically this is like a break. So remember when people design blog posts, you be like, we just ended there, read more. So you could write your heading here in your blog post, and then you read more here, text, and then you could add an image. So you see that we're already developing awesome websites already. So now I'm also going to explain to us what our head tag means. Now remember that our head tag is placed spatially different from the body tag. Now what the head tag basically does is to define the properties of the document, how the document will be. Is more of a container of the metadata, and then the metadata is about the HTML document. So you could add the author, the encoding. So let's say I want to add, remember in this our page, what is on top here is our index.html, right? And let me add a head tag, a title. Now there is a the tag called the title tag rather. So let's say I come and add my title tag. Okay, tag rather, not title. And I could call this tag just say my awesome websites. I save it and I go ahead. Now you see that these are title. And there's also what we call favicon. We'll come to those later, how you could change this small default document to your image or your logo. Now but and this is what the title tag does. Now there's also what we call the meta chassis tag. Now that is the encoding, how you want it. So but beside that, we may come to that all of them later. But just what I want you to basically know for now is that this title, that the header constitutes of how the page is run. And like I could also add on that tag also, but if you don't understand it, don't worry, I will explain it later, maybe in this course. And I could just say I want to add my meta set, and I could just say UTF. Don't worry if you don't really understand it for now, it will be explained properly later. And I close my tag. And this basically does not do anything to the site, there is no change, but it does much actually. So but we'll explain it. But what I just want to know is that this head tag constitutes of the information about the site. So there are also places to rooms you could add the author of the site and other things you would love to do also. Now in this course also, I don't know if you've ever seen a web page work and you're asking how did they do this, or you come to any page. What I want you to know about this now is There's what we call viewing the source code or inspecting an element. So if you want to know how a website works, what you simply need to do is just simply right click on that site, and that is for those using a PC. But if you're using a mobile phone, you may not really have that privilege for now. So if you click on this site, I could click on view page source. I'll see the code. Now you could go open up your Facebook page on your PC and right click on that, and you'll see the code written behind. And you see this is the code we have here. I could just wrap my text, and this is the code we have beside. So you could start right clicking functions. How did they write this? How did they do this? What did they add to do this? Or you could also inspect any particular one you want to inspect. So if I click on this one, you could inspect an element, and let's say I just want to inspect only this particular one. So now these are my document, and I could click this here. I want to inspect this image, so it links me direct to how the image was written, and that's basically what we need to know. But there are many more things also to understand in this, in the web browser and developers tools. But don't worry about them. These are just the basic things I would like us to know for now. As we go earlier, you understand how to use every one of those functions. So I'll just go ahead and close up this place now. Now I'd like to, we'll have to be fast now, we'll discuss. So now let me just show us, remember I give us an example that you need to, for you to go to the next line, you need to add this tag. But let me also show us if you want to use a PR. Let's say if I just want to write a poem, I've copied it from my documents, and I don't want it to be, and I don't need to start adding this tag at every instance. What you just need to do is simply add a PRA tag. So what it does is basically, let's say I want to write to and then I move to the next line and say now, basically, if we are to, even if we moved our file, remember I gave us an example earlier, 5 steps forward. Now you will see the difference in this file. I've saved the document now. Let me reload this tab and let's see the changes. And remember, we moved this one 5 steps, more than 3 steps forward, and this one is just 1. And you see that basically what the PRA tag does is that it more of preserves the page breaks, it preserves the spaces, the line breaks, everything you have done there, and it writes the text for you in a Korea font. Korea is a font usually used, most browsers have the font, so Korea is the tag. Now even if you don't close, you see some of these elements we wrote here, just to highlight it. Even if I don't close this tag now and I save it, if you reload it, it will still be there. There will be no difference at all. But that should not be, because most times you could not predict some of these things. Maybe the browser may just misinterpret your code, or you forgot to, or you closed one here and left the other one. So make sure you close every one of your tags. So but now that's how you could write the PRA tag. Okay, now I'd like us to style this document more. So let me just show us more about styling. Now this is the format for writing a style is usually you add this. I told us earlier that you add it is an attribute actually, so it's called a style attribute. So you add it in between. After, remember we just wrote the style attributes to style, and then you add the property, which is what I want, the font size, the background color, whatever you want, and then the value of it. Now let's say I want to add, maybe when we move over to CSS, you will know more about the style, how to style your work. Now let's say we'll talk about the style attribute. Now let's just add a background color to this our web page. Let me start with style. Now HTML, before I write this, okay, let me just add a style first. Now decide what I wanted to talk about. So let's say background color could be orange. Control S. Check out your websites. Now, so you see that you could add a background color to your image or to your website. So basically, the style attribute could add anything. Now it also has, Visual Studio Code has a variety of, it has built-in color palette where you could just choose how you want your colors. You could just choose the color you feel is best for you. But if you're using a mobile phone for now, you may not really have that feature for now, but you could have online color palettes also. So that's what the style attribute does. Now on that area also, that you may be asking difference now we just did about color. So writing color alone gives you, writing color alone gives you the text, more of styles the text, while writing the background color styles the whole page. Now there's also what we call font family. Font family is more of, it defines the font to be used in an HTML element. Let's say I want to use different fonts. I could just say I want to use Verdana for my tag here, and I write, okay, let me click on this, and then I write my font family. So the attribute for writing adding a font is usually a font family, and I will explain to us why is font family that is best used, because we are going to be adding a variety now. Okay, now look at it. Now I just clicked on Banana. So now what this thing does, that it gives me 4 different fonts that I could rely on. So in case this browser or the browser anyone logs into my page, my Facebook page or any page, my website doesn't have this first font, it could rely on this, or it doesn't have this, it could rely on this. And this is basically every website every browser should have this font. So this is just like more of a family. Now let me make it. So now this is how to add fonts. If I save this document and I reload it, so that basically the font has changed now. Okay, the color also changed when we were giving an example of how you could change colors. Now let's also say I want to add, but now that you added a font to your body style, which is to the body everything, remember you changed everything, you could also customize special fonts. You could customize how you want everyone to. Remember, this is customize yourself. Okay, let's say I want to customize just a word here to this same font. I could just say, okay, let me choose this one. Let's just quickly clear our white spaces. Let me clear it up. Okay, now let's say I want to customize this particular word now. And I could say, okay, that I want to add a style font, or the whole, let me even customize the whole paragraph. Let me just start here. So I could just say I want to style this font family, just say Korea. So this is also a font family. It has other substitutes also, and I save this document. Okay, let's come to our course. I see automatically it styles it for me the way I should. So now that you style your whole document does not mean you can't style any other specific one. Now there's also what we call font size. Font size is more of the property that defines how large you want your document to be. So let me add a font style size to this font size. Remember that while writing your code, make sure that every single every single style you add must have a semicolon. It's more of closes. Now if I save this document and I reload this tag, and you see automatically my fonts has changed. So that's basically what it does. Now you could use, but we'll still talk about fonts later, how you could use it. Now there's also a text align property, more of if you want to align your text centered, or how you want to align it. Okay, let me add it to every one of my documents. Now let's say my history could have a style and text align. Okay, sorry. Align, and let me just make it center, and I will have this aligned to the right. Okay, let me save my document, and if you reload this tag, you see the difference, and see automatically it aligns. So this is also a styling property. So what text align does for you is just to basically align your text where you want it best. Okay, now let's move over to the text formatting attributes also. And HTML also have elements that you could use to format your text. We have learned about style attributes, and there are also special elements you could use for defining how your text will look like. Maybe whether you want to bold it, make it strong. Let me just come back to our web page, and let me quickly clear up this font size rather. I don't really like how big it is on the website, so I'll just clean it for now. So but now let's say I want to add there are different styles we could use in terms of, if I just want to say I want to bold this course, or I could just want to bold this course now. We'll start with B. So B is a bold tag and it closes it for me. So you could just write in the course I want to, and I save these documents. If I come back here, I reload the tag. Okay, why we are not really seeing the effect is because every header is automatically bolded by default. Every heading tag is bolded by default. Well, let's just bring it up to, let's add it to one of these documents here. Let me click on, let me use no more. So I save this document now. I load it. So it boldens this text for me. So I could also bolden, I could bolden more and any as much as I want to. Now that is the tag for making a text bold. Okay, let me just quickly remove this font style also. I think it's not good for example. So now let's say once I've bolded this tag, there are also other things. Also, you could also italize a text. As I want to add an italics to this text now, just say the I tag is used. So now basically, unless I move this document, this file into here, and I save it, and I reload my page, so automatically it styles it for me and it links. And another tag you should also make sure is, and so bold tag, the B tag is used for to bold the text. The I tag is used to utilize the text. Now there's also another one called the EM tag, more of an emphasized text. So let me just say I want to emphasize my text. I want to use ips. I move it. Sorry, I move it in between. Let me just quickly clear this and add the right place. Okay, let me save this document and reload this tab. You quickly see that it seems it's emphasized here. So it's emphasized here. Now this is where this is also is emphasized, and beyond that, this may not really make changes maybe in your writing, but while it's being read out for those who who read out their web browsers, or for people using a braille machine, is emphasizing the text for them. And there's also a mark text. A mark text uses the word mark tag. So let's say I want to add my mark text. So and I move this file in between. I save it. Let me come back to my folder and I reload my tab. So automatically you see that it has marked the text for me. So we'll talk more about how to style those ones later. But there's also a small text. Now what a small text basically does is it kind of makes it small. A subscript. So now let me make this small. Control S, save your documents and reload it, so it makes it small. Now there's also a deleted text. A deleted text is, let's say you have written the text and you want to overwrite it, and let's say I want to add it here. I just want to add this, and let me move it in between my folder, and I save my file. Control S, and you reload your tab. You see this is a deleted text. There's also an inserted text. I want to add it here. Okay, let me leave that particular one for now. I want to add it here. Inserted text. So let me quickly close this. and if you move this file inside the insert text, you could just play around with these functions and what they look like when you are done with this lecture. I see that it just basically underlines it, but underlines it, but it's more of to emphasize that it has been inserted. You could change the features also when later in this course we'll go through that. Now we'll talk about there's what called there's a subscript. There's a subscript tag also. So sub is the code for that. So let's say I want to style only the letter R. I quickly add it in between here, and then why to make a superscript is sup. Let me just give a space so it won't override a document. Superscript plus space is sup. So if I close that document and I add the e tag alone inside it, it's just to show us. You could play around with it later. So then if I reload this tab now, so you see that these are the different variations, and this is basically the basics you need about formatting your text in HTML. Okay, now let's quickly move to a new tag. Now there is a tag used to write quotes. Let me just say I want to write a quotes. Let me go back here. So I just have, and then I want to make this a quote. Now what you simply do is you use the Q tag for short quotations. So if you don't have long quotations, you could just use the Q tag. So let's say I just want to add from here, Q, and I just want to move my. So I just want to add only here. So remember there was no quote tag here. So if I save this document, I just now and I reload my tab, so automatically it gives me a quote document. So I don't really need to add it before if I'm adding a Q tag. But there's also a format for adding block quotes or adding more quotes. Let's say you have a section that is quoted from somewhere else, or you got something from a website and you want to quote it. Let's say I got this whole place now quoted from a new site. All you simply need to do is just to add a block quote tag. And what a block quote does, we'll see the difference now. Block quotes, and you close it, and basically you can move this to wherever you want it. And for now here, move to the next line. Remember to maintain your tab spaces. So let's save the document and come back here, and you see what it does for us. So it makes it more like a place where we could just put it in form of a block. Now there's also an attribute used in the block quotes is used to cite documents. Let's say you got it from let's say now this is the cite document. You just say where you got it from, and I could start by writing I got it from https / this www dots where you got the file from. So now that is just you could just add. Okay, let me even use our about page since we are working with that for now. So now that's basically, so you could also reference any other style also. Now there are also abbreviations. So imagine I add an abbreviation here and I call it reg. So you could abbreviate it. You could add an abbreviation tag to it. So an abbreviation tag to it means I could just add an abbreviation. I click enter. So if I move this into here, so now what it basically does is now abbreviation tag also has a title. What the title does is that it helps you to know the full meaning. So most times you could also add a title inside an abbreviation tag. So I could just say this is Rejoice Education just say joy. So now if you save this file and reload it in your browser, you see that automatically you will see there's a special emphasis in this abbreviation. Now those dots underneath, and hovering over it also gives you what you could do. And that's basically how you could add an abbreviation. Okay, and now there's also an address tag. What an address tag does is more of it gives us information about the address of, let's say you're coding a website and you need to add the information. So if you just write the address tag, you could basically add how it will look like. We could basically add the information about the address tag. Now it may not really make much sense in some of adding every tag in every single thing you do, but it has a lot of impact in your browser because it makes the browser understand better what you do. So the difference may not really be much, as you can see, just lands it for us. But this is also a tag that is very necessary. Now there's also a bi-directional override tag. Bi-directional override tag more of makes you could change the text from right to left. Let's say this is your ipsum dollar and I want to add a bi-directional tag here, so I could just use video, and it also has an attribute of the direction you want to change it. So I want to write it from, so I want to move from right to left, so you just use RTL, that's a shortcut for it. So now once you are done with this, okay, let me insert the text inside the bidirectional tag. Okay, remember this is Lorem ipsum dollar, and let's save it now and let's see how it will look like in our browser. So you see automatically it changes the direction of the tag. So that's also another function also it could have. Now what are HTML comment tags? Now comment tags are tags you use to insert comments in your source code. Now comment tags are written using this format. I want to add a comment here. Good. Now this is the format you use to add a comment tag. So automatically closes for me. Now what a comment tag does is they are just codes that you could add using, more like they are not displayed on your tag, but they are codes you could use adding your HTML source or the syntax following, and they can help your source code more. They can help you know what you are doing, know that this is where you stop, this is where you start. I can just say my first paragraph starts here. My first paragraph starts here. So and I save these documents. If you reload this tab, so you will not really see it here, but it helps you. Or even if you give your code to a different developer also to interpret, the developer also can also understand your tag. So, and don't forget that the first tag has an exclamation mark while the last one does not. So it doesn't follow the syntax of these ones that has opening and closing tags. So this one usually has just one tag, but the first one usually have an exclamation mark while the second one does not. So note that. Now in HTML also a color can be defined using the color name. Let's say this is my example. I just called it red. You could also define a color using that color name also. And beyond that also, there also you could style a text, you could style your background, you could style a border, you could style just basically whatever you want to style for now. And there are also many other functions you could talk about. There is also their color values, like using in HTML now. The color values can also be specified using the RGB values. And RGB is in terms of, as I hover over here now, you see that it more in terms of gives me the RGB values of the color I just chose. So as you change, you could also see more RGB values also. So more of is a mixture of the red, green, and blue, or a red, green, and blue colors combination, the primary colors. So you could also use your RGB values, or you could also have, and most times RGB values, once they are in shades, let's say what we have here is 60 60 60, it more of gives you a shade. And there's also a hex value. A hex value is also is more of a value, a color in an hexadecimal form, where, and it has the format of the first two. It has the format of this is more of what the format looks like. Let me just write it in the next place as a comment. Okay, now this is the format of a hex value. So it has RR, GG, and BB. And what it does that the first value is usually RR, the red, green, and the B values, and and the hexadecimal value is usually between 0 and FF, and which is the same thing as decimal, which is usually 0 and 255 or so. So I could just say I want to add my color. I want to change this color. So let me add a new color here, and let me just say I want to style this color, and I just say I want to use okay, let's use anyone 442211, and I save this document. I reload this course, so automatically styles it for me. Okay, it doesn't have an effect on our browser. It seems I just wrote an imaginary color. Okay, let me start with FF. Let's say the highest of FF 452. Okay, now that was an error we had earlier. We added a color that doesn't exist. So let's say I just added a color now. Now, if you're using this style, you could also choose your own color, how you want it to look. Also, it automatically changes it for you, as if you're using Visual Studio Code. But if you're using your mobile phone, there are other color platforms online that could change it for you. So let's save our document and preview in our browser to see how it's now. You see automatically you could change our colors. So for me, I'm using light colors. I could just remove this background color now, or I could just make it dark, since for it to be visible. Ctrl S and change in our browser. So those are the changes we've made now. Okay, now this is basically where we'll have to stop for now. So I think if you followed this kind of length, it's kind of lengthy now the video, but I tried covering as much as possible in this particular video. So I'd like you to just go ahead and practice with this. So I'll be expecting your project to be what you're able to do with this, and this is already your part to web development, because so far you could create all things that you could use. So I'll give us an assignment to just go ahead and create something that you feel that is okay. Use all these tags that we use there, and you could see yourself become something new, because as you keep practicing, it kind of makes you more perfect. So remember that I'll be uploading another video, and I'll inform us when I'll do that. So but if you just joined us, maybe when the video has been uploaded, you could go to the next video. So simply visit the next video to learn more about this course, and we'll be having HTML, CSS, tutorial, JavaScript, and Node.js, and all the way to everything you need to know about web development. And now that's it for now. Remember to subscribe, turn on the notification bell to make sure that you are notified on every of our upload. And by so doing, thank you very much for joining us in this class. I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you so much.